Hey guys, tonight we're taking you back in time to a world without central heating, electric blankets, or even a decent cup of hot chocolate. Imagine stepping outside, your breath hanging in the frigid air, and every gust of wind feeling like icy fingers clawing at your face. Snow crunches under your feet, and a steel grey sky presses down, threatening another storm. You're not just visiting this world, you're living it. You're a medieval peasant, and winter is coming. But here's the thing. Unlike you cozy under your blankets right now, medieval peasants didn't get a break from the cold. In fact, without the right preparation, you probably won't survive this. I'm serious. Back then, a single misstep, like running out of firewood or food, could mean a slow, shivering end. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and the local time. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first frost arrives like an unwelcome guest. You wake up one chilly morning, and there it is. Tiny white crystals covering the thatched roof of your cottage, a glistening carpet of frost on the bare ground. Your breath comes out in white puffs even indoors, and you know the long, brutal winter is here. Every part of your life will now be defined by the cold. You shuffle to the single window in your cottage, its thin oiled parchment barely keeping the wind out. No glass here, only the wealthiest nobles have glass windows. Your fingers are already numb as you fumble to tighten the shutters, a futile attempt to keep the chill at bay. But winter is more than just cold air. It's the season of shadows, where daylight slips away early, leaving you huddled in darkness. You can almost feel the sun retreating, hiding beyond those grey clouds, and each day seems shorter and grimmer. Outside, the trees stand stripped and skeletal, their once green canopies now a barren tangle of branches clawing at the sky. Your life, once filled with the rhythm of sowing, harvesting, and tending the fields, is now reduced to a daily fight against the elements. You're not alone in this struggle. Your neighbours, other peasants just like you, are all facing the same battle. The village is quiet, almost sombre, as everyone retreats indoors. Those who had been full of laughter and energy in the summer now speak in hushed tones, voices muffled by the thick scarves wrapped around their faces. Your world has changed overnight. That first frost is not just a pretty sight, it's a warning. A reminder that everything, from your next meal to your very life, now depends on your preparations. If you didn't store enough food, if your roof has a leak, if your firewood pile is too small, these are not small problems. They are life or death. As the day drags on, the sky remains a flat, oppressive grey. No sun, just a bleak, cold glare. You remember the old tales, how winter is the time when the world of the living draws closer to the world of the dead. Some say that the restless spirits can wander in the darkness, slipping through cracks in the walls or lurking in the shadows. Superstitions, sure, but in the cold, they don't seem so silly. When night falls, it's like the world is swallowed by darkness. The wind picks up, howling like a pack of wolves beyond the village, and your only light comes from a single, flickering fire. The shadows stretch and dance on the walls, and your family huddles closer to the hearth, sharing what little warmth you have. That first night of winter is always the worst. The realization hits you. You're trapped. Trapped in this tiny cottage, trapped in the darkness, and trapped in the cold. There's no escaping it. And as the wind howls outside, you can't help but wonder, did you prepare enough? Will you and your family survive until spring? But for now, all you can do is wait, hope, and cling to the meagre warmth of the fire. Winter has only just begun. The cottage you call home is both a refuge and a trap. When the winter wind howls outside, there's nowhere else you'd rather be. But once you're inside, huddled with your family, you quickly remember the downsides. The walls are thick, but they're made of wattle and daub, a messy blend of mud, straw, and sticks. Great for blocking out a summer breeze, not so great for keeping out the bitter winter cold. A thatched roof looms overhead, its thick, dry reeds meant to keep the rain and snow at bay. But if the roof has a leak, that water will seep through, freezing into icy drips that plop right onto your bedding. You've tried patching it with whatever you can find, more straw, clay, even bits of old cloth, but it never seems to be enough. And then there's the smoke. Your cottage has a hearth, basically an open fire pit, right in the centre of the main room. There's a hole in the roof above it, meant to let the smoke escape, but it only works if the wind is just right. On most days, the smoke swirls around, stinging your eyes, making your throat scratchy. Some days, you feel like you're being slow cooked along with the evening stew, but you need that fire. It's your only source of warmth, your stove, your light in the darkness. So you've learned to live with the smoke, even when it makes your eyes water. You and your family spend most of your time clustered around the hearth, rubbing your hands together, trying to capture every bit of warmth. The air outside is a blade, but in here, the heat of the fire battles it back, barely. Your family's bedding is another layer of defense against the cold. Straw-filled mattresses line the cottage's single room, each one covered with threadbare blankets. These blankets are patched again and again, a colourful quilt of old fabric stitched with care. Some are too thin to be of much help, but they're better than nothing. When you sleep, you pile them all on top of you, a heavy, scratchy cocoon. The walls are decorated with whatever you can spare, a few herbs drying in bundles, some old wooden tools, and maybe, if you're lucky, a crude wooden cross for a bit of divine protection. But you know the truth. Those decorations won't stop the cold. Every time the door opens, a rush of freezing air sweeps in, so you keep it shut as much as possible, stuffing rags into the gaps to block the drafts. But you can't just seal yourself in. The fire needs air, and the cottage needs ventilation, or you'll suffocate in your sleep. It's a delicate balance, enough airflow to breathe, but not so much that the cold rushes in. You remember stories from the old folks, tales of cottages catching fire in the dead of winter, when a spark from the hearth landed on dry straw, or worse, of families suffocating from smoke on nights when the wind forced it back down through the chimney. Every winter, you hear whispers of such tragedies, and each story is a fresh knot of fear in your gut. Yet there are moments of strange comfort here too. When the wind roars outside, but you're safe by the fire, there's a cozy sense of survival. You listen to the crackling of the firewood, watch the shadows dance on the walls, and maybe even hum a song with your family to pass the long, dark hours. Sometimes you tell stories, anything to distract from the creeping chill. Tales of brave knights, clever foxes, or lost spirits wandering the winter woods. Your little brother always asks for the one about the green man, a spirit who brings spring by battling the icy grip of winter. It's a silly tale, but tonight you can almost believe it. Outside, the village is a ghost town. Most of your neighbours have sealed themselves in just like you. If you listen closely, you can hear the faint echoes of their muffled voices, their coughs, their laughter, all huddled against the same darkness. But winter has a way of making even your own cottage feel unfamiliar. As the nights stretch longer and the light from the fire casts eerie shadows, your imagination begins to play tricks on you. Was that a creak in the wall just the wind, or something else? You tell yourself it's just the cold wood shifting, but you don't really believe it. You think of the forest beyond the village, those twisted, leafless trees. In summer, it was a place to gather berries and firewood. In winter, it's a dark, silent maze, a place where shadows lurk and strange noises echo. They say wolves stalk the woods in this season, driven closer to the village by hunger. You haven't seen one yet, but you've heard them. Those distant, mournful howls that slip through the night air like ghostly whispers. And so you stay close to the fire. When sleep finally pulls at your eyelids, you curl up as close to your family as you can, wrapped in the tattered blankets. Your father, your mother, your little brother, they're all here, sharing this tiny smoke-filled space, each one of them a fragile heartbeat, just like you, hoping to outlast the cold. Sleep doesn't come easily. The wind finds its way through every crack in the walls, a constant whisper that keeps you on edge. But eventually, exhaustion wins. Your eyelids grow heavy and you drift off, the distant howling of wolves mingling with the crackle of the dying fire. Tomorrow will be another day of cold, another battle to keep the fire burning, another struggle to keep the warmth inside and the freezing darkness out. But for now, you sleep, or at least you try to. The fire's warmth may be your salvation, but it doesn't follow you everywhere. As dawn breaks, a pale, washed-out light seeps through the tiny window of your cottage. It's time to get up. You feel it immediately. The cold has crept back in, stealing the night's warmth. Your breath puffs white in the dim room, and your bare feet sting against the icy dirt floor. But there's no time to linger under the blankets. You reach for your clothing, which isn't so much a wardrobe as it is a patchwork of survival. Layers are your armour. First comes the basic linen tunic, a coarse, scratchy fabric that's seen better days. Over that, you add another tunic, thicker and woolen, though it's been mended so many times that it's more patch than original cloth. Your mother taught you to save every scrap of fabric, even the smallest pieces, because you never know when you'll need them to cover a new tear. Next, your legs. Thick woolen hose, a luxury in these harsh months, pulled up as high as they'll go. For your feet, you slip on crude leather shoes stuffed with straw for extra insulation. It's not exactly comfortable, but you'd rather have itchy feet than frozen toes. Then comes the outer layer, an old heavy cloak, stained and faded, but still your most precious possession. It's fastened with a simple iron brooch, and the fabric is thick enough to trap what little body heat you have. On your head, a woolen cap, its edges fraying, but it's a barrier against the cruel wind. Your hands are the hardest to protect. Gloves are a luxury you don't have, so instead, you wrap them in strips of cloth. Rough, but better than nothing. You flex your fingers, feeling the ache in your knuckles as they struggle to stay warm. You aren't the only one bundled like this. Everyone in the village moves around like a herd of bears, thick, shuffling figures, wrapped in layers. Little children waddle awkwardly in oversized cloaks, their hands buried deep in their sleeves. Your father, despite his grumbling, is no different. A thick scarf wrapped around his face, his beard poking out like frost-coated straw. But your clothing is not just for warmth. Each piece is a testament to your family's ingenuity. That patched tunic, it was once your uncle's. The thick cloak, a gift from your grandmother, sewn with the last of her good wool. Nothing goes to waste. When a garment becomes too torn to wear, it's not thrown away, it's transformed. The sleeves become scarves, the main body is turned into rags or stuffing for your bedding. You've even heard of peasants lining their clothes with dried moss or hay, desperate for any extra warmth. And in the dead of winter, some even stuff their shoes with sheep's wool, though that's a rare luxury for your family. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants were truly as poor and ragged as some stories claim. But you know one thing, without these layers you wouldn't last a single night. Of course, there are those who fare better. The village blacksmith, with his constant access to a roaring forge, seems to shrug off the cold as though it were nothing. His thick, soot-stained apron doubles as a windbreaker, and his arms are corded with muscle from years of swinging the hammer. He doesn't need as many layers as you do, his body burning like a furnace from within. Then there's the village priest. He walks around in a thick, fur-lined robe, a symbol of both his status and his supposed closeness to God. But you've seen him shiver in the biting wind, just like everyone else. Even the wealthiest in your village can't escape the winter entirely. But it's not just about clothing. It's about how you move, how you breathe, how you survive. When you step outside, you learn to pull your cloak close, letting it wrap around you like a cocoon. You turn your face away from the wind, ducking your chin into the warmth of your scarf. You keep your hands tucked close to your body, saving every bit of heat, and you aren't alone. The whole village moves like a slow shuffling mass in winter. You see neighbours gathering straw for their roofs, wood for their fires, all wrapped in whatever scraps they can find. Children dart around, their cheeks flushed pink, their noses running, but their laughter is a rare splash of joy in the grey world. Some of the older folks mutter about how winters used to be even worse, a constant refrain of "back in my day." But you wonder how much of that is true. Cold is cold. It doesn't care about age or experience. But there's one truth you've learned. Without these layers, without this constant battle to keep warm, you wouldn't survive. Every morning, dressing yourself is an act of preparation, like a knight donning armour before a battle. And in a way, it is a battle. A constant struggle against the bitter wind, the creeping frost, the numbing cold. It's a strange sort of pride, knowing that each stitch, each patch is a victory. That no matter how harsh the winter, you have a weapon, your layered, patched and threadbare shield. And as you trudge out into the snow, your breath misting in the air, you feel just a little bit invincible. But you know that this feeling won't last. The cold is patient. It's always there, waiting to seep through your layers, to test your resolve. And you have many more months of it ahead. Warm or not, you can't eat wool. As the winter settles in, the cold is only one of your enemies. Hunger is the other, and it's a far crueler one. You shuffle to the back of your cottage, where the family's precious food stores are carefully stashed. In the dim light, you see the same collection you've stared at for weeks. A sack of withered root vegetables, a few shriveled apples, a bundle of dried herbs, a clay jar of salt, and a precious sack of grain that seems to shrink each time you look. Food is everything now. The bounty of the summer fields is a distant memory, and every meal must be stretched. Your mother is the master of this delicate balance. Her hands are steady as she measures out the day's rations, her eyes sharp with the weight of the task. Each potato is turned in her hands, each onion inspected for rot. Nothing is wasted. But even with all this care, the supplies dwindle. The bread, once warm and fresh, is now stale and hard as a brick. You've learned to soak it in warm broth to make it edible again. And the broth itself is a thin, watery thing, little more than hot water flavoured with a few wilted herbs and maybe a scrap of salted meat if you're lucky. The root vegetables are your main defence against starvation. Carrots, parsnips, turnips, all dug from the earth before it froze. They've been stored in a dark, cool corner, covered in a layer of straw to keep them fresh. But even here, in the darkness, rot can creep in. You cut away the black spots, saving what you can. And then there's the grain, your family's true treasure. Flour, ground from the last harvest's wheat, is stored in a thick, rough-woven sack. It's guarded like gold, measured carefully each day. You remember how, in autumn, you watched the village miller work, his great millstone grinding the golden grains into flour, the air thick with white dust. That flour is life now. Mixed with a bit of water and salt, it becomes flatbread, baked over the hearth's dying embers. Bland, but filling. But flour has enemies too. Mice. You've seen their tiny shadows darting around the corners of the cottage, their beady eyes gleaming with hunger, just like yours. You and your brother take turns setting traps, simple wooden snares baited with crumbs. Sometimes you catch one, and your mother makes a face, but you know that one less mouse means a little more food for your family. Dried meat is another treasure, though it's disappearing fast. Back in the autumn, you helped your father prepare it, salting strips of pork and hanging them over the hearth to dry. It's tough and salty, but it's protein, and you gnaw at each strip as if it were the finest roast. Sometimes, if your mother is feeling generous, she will crumble a bit into the broth, turning the thin soup into something almost like a stew. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants had enough to eat during winter or if famine was a constant shadow. But you know one thing, there's never enough to feel full. Each meal is a delicate calculation, just enough to stop the hunger pangs, but never so much that you can't stretch it further. Even the drinks are a struggle, Fresh milk is a memory now. Your family's single cow has stopped producing, a victim of the cold and the poor winter grazing. Instead, you make do with thin ale, brewed in the autumn and stored in clay jugs. It's weak, barely stronger than water, but it's safer to drink than the icy water from the well, which can turn your stomach if you're not careful. The wealthy have their spices, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, imported from far-off lands. You've heard tales of those warm, exotic flavours, but for you, they're just stories. Your family's meals are seasoned with salt, and that itself is precious. Your father once traded a full sack of turnips for a small pouch of salt, a decision that your mother has never let him forget. You've heard whispers of worse fates. Some say that in the poorest villages, desperate families have boiled strips of leather, trying to turn the tough, inedible hide into something that might fill their stomachs. Others tell of wild herbs and bitter roots dug from the frozen ground, anything that can be chewed. But here in your village, your family clings to a strict rationing system. Your mother's sharp eyes and steady hands keep the stores from vanishing too quickly. But it's a delicate balance. You can feel the hunger already gnawing at you, even after a meal. Your stomach never feels truly full. Sometimes your father talks about the village feasts, those rare celebrations where the tables groaned under the weight of roasted meats, fresh bread, and spiced ale. You remember one just before winter set in, when the whole village gathered around a great bonfire, and even the poorest had their fill. But now, that memory feels like a dream, something distant and unreachable. As the days pass, you become almost obsessed with counting. How many potatoes are left? How much grain? You and your brother turn it into a secret game, each trying to guess how many days you can stretch the food. But it's not really a game. It's a question you're too afraid to answer. Outside, the world is a white, frozen wasteland. But in here, it's the emptiness of the shelves that haunts you. Every time you reach into the sack of grain, you feel the cold, thin layer of flour slipping through your fingers, and you wonder, how many days until you reach the bottom? And then there are the smells, the sour, earthy scent of root vegetables, the sharp tang of salt, the faint, smoky aroma of dried meat. It's a strange, musty mix that clings to your clothes, your hair, even your skin. The smell of survival. Tonight, your mother ladles out the thin broth, her face calm, but her eyes wary. Your father chews slowly, savouring each bite as if it were a feast. Your brother eats quickly, his hunger driving him. And you? You take your time, letting each spoonful warm your mouth, trying not to think about tomorrow's meal. Because the truth is simple, the food is running out, and winter has only just begun. Winter may have frozen the fields solid, but the work doesn't stop. Hunger gnaws at you, and the cold bites your skin, but there are always chores. In fact, winter means even more work made harder by the freezing air, the short days, and the constant need to keep the fire burning. You have no choice. No one does. First, there are the animals. Just because the world is locked in ice doesn't mean the livestock stop needing you. You pull on your patched cloak, cinch it tight, and push open the heavy wooden door of your cottage. Instantly, the cold wind claws at your face, and your breath turns to mist. The snow crunches beneath your feet as you trudge toward the barn. Inside, it's a little warmer. Not by much, but enough that the animals are alive. The family's single cow, a thin, bony thing, lets out a tired low. Her breath clouds the air like smoke, and she stamps her hooves, her feed already trampled into a cold, muddy mess. You reach out, patting her coarse, shaggy hide, feeling the slight warmth beneath. You grab a bundle of the precious hay, each strand like gold in the winter, and spread it for her. She eats slowly, her jaws moving in a steady, grinding rhythm. Next are the chickens. Only a few survive the autumn fox raids, and they huddle together on their perch, feathers puffed up like little blankets. Eggs are rare now, but you check anyway, feeling under each hen's warm belly. One cold, misshapen egg meets your fingers, a treasure. You carefully slip it into your pocket, already imagining the thin, sizzling omelette it might become. The goat, always a stubborn creature, butts at you as you check her pen. She's a scrappy thing, but her milk is a blessing. At least it was before she stopped producing. For now, she's just another mouth to feed. Still, her warmth is something. You press your cold hands against her side for a moment, feeling the life beneath her rough coat. But animals need more than food. You break the thin layer of ice that's formed in the water troughs, scooping out the icy shards. You've seen what happens if you don't, a thick, solid block that even your father's axe struggles to break. Chores done, you turn to the next task, firewood. A day without enough firewood is a day of freezing misery, and you won't let that happen. Your father is already out in the forest, his thick cloak swaying as he swings his axe. The forest is silent in the snow, the great trees rising like black skeletons against the pale sky. Each stroke of the axe sends a sharp crack echoing through the cold air. You gather the smaller branches, bending to snap them under your foot. Deadwood is your main target, dry, brittle branches that will catch quickly. But even these are harder to find. Snow clings to everything, and the dampness can make a fire useless. You stack the wood in a rough sled, a crude thing your father made from old planks and rope. It scrapes along behind you as you trudge back toward the cottage, your breath coming in ragged puffs. The wind nips at your cheeks, but you ignore it. This is survival. Back at the cottage, your mother is already stoking the hearth. She takes your load of wood, muttering a quiet thanks, her face lit orange by the firelight. You help her place the driest pieces on the embers, carefully arranging them so they catch. Smoke curls upward, drawn toward the hole in the roof, but you can still smell it, sharp, woody, and bitter. Then there are the tools. Winter is a time of mending. Broken handles, dull blades, cracked pottery, everything must be repaired. You sit by the dim firelight, a crude knife in your hands, carefully scraping and sharpening a wooden pitchfork. Your father has a thick whetstone, and you watch as he runs your family's single good knife along its surface, sparks flying with each pass. But the tools are not just for work, they are your defense when the wolves come prowling. Thin grey shapes moving silently among the trees. Your father keeps that knife close. You've seen their tracks in the snow, clawed prints leading up to the edge of the village, then vanishing. Some nights you hear them howling, a lonely bone-chilling sound that rises and falls with the wind. And you must also keep the cottage itself in shape. The roof needs constant checking. One bad wind, and a section of thatch can be torn free, letting the cold pour in. You climb up, your fingers freezing as you press fresh straw into place, tying it down with old twine. The walls, too, are always shifting, the mud and straw cracking with the constant changes in temperature. Your mother mixes a fresh batch of mud paste, and you smear it into the gaps, sealing the cold out, for now. Your little brother, too young to help with the hardest chores, is given his own task, spinning yarn. His small fingers are quick, pulling and twisting the rough wool fibres into something that can be woven or patched. It keeps him warm by the fire, and it means your family will have something to trade, should you make it to spring. Your father has a saying, idle hands are the devil's tools. But you know the truth, idle hands are cold hands. Working means moving, and moving means warmth. Even when your fingers ache, even when the cold seeps into your bones, you keep going. Sometimes you glance over the fields, now just a white, endless sheet of snow, the summer's bounty buried beneath. You remember the harvest, the rows of golden wheat, the green shoots of beans, the fat pumpkins. But those are just memories now. Winter has taken them all. Your mother starts to sing, a soft, low song in a language you barely understand, something she learned from her mother, who learned it from hers. It's a song about the spring, about green leaves and warm rain, but her voice is thin and tired, and so you keep working. Your hands are rough, your feet numb, your stomach tight with hunger, but you keep going, because you know that each branch you gather, each tool you mend, each crack you seal is one more tiny victory against the cold. It's a fight you never truly win. The cold is patient. It creeps back, settling into your bones, waiting for you to make a mistake, to rest just a little too long. But you keep moving, keep working, because you must. This is life in the winter, one long endless day of struggling against the darkness, one chore at a time. As the days grow shorter, the darkness seems to swallow the world. The sun barely rises before it begins to sink again, a pale, weak light that does little to warm your skin. You and your family begin to live by the firelight, and the village becomes a shadowy, silent place, a cluster of dimly glowing cottages huddled together against the night. Night is when the cold is most fierce. As the sun disappears, the air sharpens, and the darkness outside becomes an endless, hungry void. You pull your cloak tighter, and your family gathers even closer to the hearth, watching the orange glow dance across the walls. The fire is everything. It is warmth, it is light, it is life itself. Without it, the cold would take you. But with the darkness comes something else. Fear. It starts as a whisper, a creeping sensation that makes you glance toward the shadowed corners of the cottage. In the stories you've heard, winter nights are a time of danger. The wolves are bold now, their howls drifting on the wind, closer than ever. Sometimes you hear them, a distant, haunting chorus that sends shivers down your spine. They're hungry too, but it's not just the wolves. There are the stories, the tales whispered by your father in the quiet of the night. Tales of the night spirits, the shadows that wander the frozen fields, looking for the warmth of the living. Tales of the wild hunt, a ghostly procession led by a spectral huntsman, galloping across the winter sky with a pack of phantom hounds. Stay close to the fire, your father says. It keeps them away. You know it's just a story. But still, you keep the fire high, feeding it with the driest wood you have. Its light is a shield, pushing the darkness back. Your mother hangs a sprig of holly above the door, a little charm meant to keep the evil spirits at bay. Your little brother sleeps with a wooden cross clutched in his hands, a gift from the village priest. The darkness plays tricks on your mind. Sometimes you think you see shapes moving outside the window, a flicker of shadow against the snow. You tell yourself it's just the wind blowing the bare branches, but the uneasy feeling lingers. When the wind rises, it howls through the gaps in the cottage walls, a mournful, ghostly wail. Sometimes it shakes the thatch on the roof, making the whole house creak and groan. And when the moon is hidden behind thick clouds, the darkness becomes absolute, a suffocating blackness that seems to press in from all sides. You aren't alone in this fear. In the village, the nights are a time of whispered prayers and hurried footsteps. The villagers avoid walking alone, even between their own homes. Doors are barred, windows shuttered, and every house becomes a fortress of flickering light. Yet even in this darkness, there are moments of warmth. Huddled by the fire, you and your family tell stories. Your father, leaning close, speaks of brave knights who battled the winter demons, of clever foxes who tricked hungry wolves. Your mother tells you of the sun goddess who sleeps in the winter and wakes in the spring, bringing life back to the earth. Your little brother likes the story of Jack Frost, a mischievous spirit who dances across the fields, painting the windows with delicate patterns. You've seen those frost patterns, tiny glittering forests and icy ferns that grow overnight. They're beautiful, but you know they're also a reminder of the cold's relentless touch. But it's not all stories and shadows. Some nights, the darkness is broken by something wonderful. The northern lights, faint ribbons of green and purple light that shimmer across the sky, like ghostly flames dancing among the stars. You remember the first time you saw them, your father lifting you up so you could see above the snow-covered hedges. He told you they were the spirits of ancient warriors lighting the heavens with their eternal fire. Whether that's true or not, they make the darkness a little less frightening. Yet the fear is always there, just beneath the surface. When the fire burns low, when the wind rises, you feel it again. That prickling at the back of your neck. That gnawing worry that there's something just outside, watching, waiting. Your family has their own ways of pushing back the darkness. Your father carves tiny charms from wood, simple little figures of animals, each one meant to protect you. He hangs them over the hearth, whispering quiet blessings. Your mother sings soft old songs as she weaves, her voice a warm, steady thread against the silence. You even have your own secret weapon, an old cracked lantern, the glass fogged with age. It's filled with a bit of tallow, a thick greasy wax that burns with a pale smoky light. You keep it close at night, its faint glow a tiny island of light in the darkness. But there are some nights when the fear becomes too strong, nights when the wind screams like a living thing and the wolves howl just beyond the village. On those nights, you can't sleep. You sit by the fire staring into the flames, listening to the crackle of burning wood and the soft breathing of your family. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants were truly afraid of the dark, or if it was just a fact of life. But you know the truth. There is a fear that lives in the darkness, a fear as old as winter itself. And in these endless frozen nights, that fear is as real as the cold. But you also know something else. The darkness can't last forever. The night may be long, but somewhere beyond the black sky, the sun is waiting. And each morning, no matter how cold, no matter how dark the night before, that pale, weak light returns. You cling to that thought, letting it warm you, even as the wind howls and the shadows dance, because winter may be strong, but it can't last forever. And in the darkness, you learn to find your own light. Winter's chill is constant, but there's another enemy that stalks your village: sickness. It creeps in quietly, slipping under the door, riding on the cold air. You don't always see it coming, but you feel it. An ache in the bones, a tickle in the throat that turns into a rasping cough. And in the close, smoky air of your cottage, it spreads fast. It starts small. Your little brother, always fidgeting and full of energy, begins to slow down. His cheeks, usually flushed pink from the cold, turn pale. He coughs, a dry hacking sound that echoes in the quiet room. Your mother wraps him in extra blankets, her face drawn with worry. She brews a thin herbal tea, yarrow and mint boiled in a cracked clay pot. But you know it's just a comfort. It can't do much. Soon, it isn't just him. Your father's voice becomes rough, each word scraping out like gravel. He tries to laugh it off, saying it's just the cold air, but you see the way he winces holding his chest. Your mother presses her hand to his forehead, feeling the fever that burns beneath the pale skin. The cottage seems even smaller now, the air heavy with the scent of smoke, sweat and sickness. But you can't just sit and wait. Your mother is the village healer, or at least as close to one as you have. She knows the herbs that grow in the summer fields, the sweet-smelling lavender, the bright yellow tansy, the bitter wormwood. But winter has stolen them all. The little bunches she dried and hung above the hearth are dwindling fast. You and your mother bundle up, braving the biting wind as you step out into the snow. There are a few herbs that can still be found in winter. Pine needles, sharp and green, can be boiled to make a tea rich in vitamins. Birch bark can be scraped and brewed as well, a bitter drink that eases the pain in aching bones. You search along the edge of the forest, scraping at the snow, your fingers numb even through your thick, patched gloves. But the forest is dangerous too. The wind howls through the trees, and the snow is deep. You can't wander far. You've heard of people getting lost, their tracks covered by fresh snowfall, their bodies found only when spring melts the ice. Back in the village, sickness spreads. You hear the thin, weak coughs echoing from other cottages. The old woman who lives alone across the path is worst of all. Her son comes knocking, his face pale with fear, begging your mother to help. You watch as she wraps a shawl around her shoulders, grabs her bag of herbs, and heads out into the snow again. Your mother doesn't talk about what she sees, but you hear the whispers. The old woman's cough is deep, wet and rattling. Her breath comes in ragged gasps. Some say she won't make it. Others murmur about bad omens, about evil spirits riding the winter wind, bringing death to the weak. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants understood the true causes of illness, but for you, it's simpler. Sickness is a shadow, a creeping, invisible thing that slips in with the cold. It preys on the weak, the tired, the hungry, and in winter, everyone is weak. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants understood the true causes of illness, but for you, it's simpler. Sickness is a shadow, a creeping, invisible thing that slips in with the cold. It preys on the weak, the tired, the hungry, and in winter, everyone is weak. Your father's cough worsens. He stays by the fire, wrapped in his heavy cloak, his eyes glassy with fever. Your mother forces him to drink her bitter herbal tea, but he only grimaces, the liquid spilling down his beard. Sometimes in his fevered dreams, he mutters, names you don't know, strange words that mean nothing. You sit beside him, watching, helpless. But even in the darkness, there are small hopes. Your mother is relentless. She brews tea, changes the damp cloth on your father's forehead, rubs his chest with pungent ointments made from pine resin and crushed garlic. The cottage smells sharp and earthy, but it's better than the smell of sickness. And she teaches you too, how to crush dried herbs between your fingers, how to mix a poultice, how to test the warmth of a fevered brow. You become her assistant, fetching water, stoking the fire, stirring the simmering pot. It's a comfort having something to do. Sometimes the village priest comes to visit, his breath misting in the cold air as he mutters prayers, waving his iron cross over the sick. You aren't sure if it helps, but your mother lets him speak. Faith is a balm, she says, even if it's only for the soul. Your brother seems to recover, his energy returning, his cheeks pink once more. He grins at you, his crooked smile like a tiny sunrise in the gloom. But your father is slow to heal. The cough lingers, his voice thin and raspy. Still he smiles, his rough hand patting your shoulder, telling you not to worry. But you do worry, because the cold doesn't leave, the nights are still long, and the sickness is always there, waiting. You hear stories of other villages, of whole families struck down. Some say it's a curse, others whisper of poisoned wells, or the wrath of angry spirits. Fear spreads even faster than the sickness itself. But you keep going. Your mother teaches you a song, a simple, steady chant she hums while she works. It's not magic, it can't banish the fever, but it's something, a thread of calm in the storm. And slowly, so slowly you barely notice, your father begins to heal. His cough becomes less fierce, his eyes a little clearer. He even jokes weakly about how he must be tougher than the spirits of winter. Your mother smiles, though her eyes are still shadowed with worry. In the village, the worst of the sickness seems to pass. The coughing grows quieter, the thin, pale faces grow a little brighter. Not everyone survives. There are stories of old men who slipped away quietly in the night, of tiny babies who never grew warm again. But your family is still together. As you sit by the fire one night, stirring the embers, you look around the cottage, your father leaning back against the wall, his breathing steady. Your mother mending a torn sleeve, her face lit by the firelight. Your brother already asleep, a faint smile on his face. The cold is still there, the darkness pressing against the thin walls of the cottage. But here, in this circle of firelight, you feel a little bit safe. Sickness may come, fear may gnaw at you, but you know that as long as you have your family, you have a chance. You take a deep breath, feeling the warm air fill your lungs. The darkness may be strong, but you are not alone. And that is enough. The darkness of winter isn't just a physical thing. It seeps into the mind, a cold, heavy weight that wraps around your thoughts. As the days blend together, grey sky, white snow, and endless cold, it's easy to lose track of time. You start to wonder if spring will ever come. The village becomes a quiet, sullen place. Laughter is rare, and smiles seem frozen, just like the earth. You've heard the adults talk of winter madness, a darkness that takes hold of the mind. The old widow, who lives alone at the edge of the village, mutters to herself now. Her voice, a thin, whispering song that drifts on the wind. Your mother shakes her head sadly, saying that the cold has gotten into her bones, but you know it's something else. Loneliness, maybe, or just the endless crushing weight of winter. But you aren't alone. Your family is here, gathered around the fire. Even on the hardest days, there is a rhythm, a purpose. There are chores to be done, stories to be told, and quiet moments of comfort. When the darkness presses in, your mother sings, soft, warm songs in the old language. You don't know all the words, but the melody wraps around you like a blanket. And then there are the little celebrations, the brief flickers of joy that keep you going. One morning, you wake to the sound of laughter, sharp and bright in the cold air. Your little brother is dancing around the cottage, waving a small withered branch of mistletoe he found hanging above the door. "It's lucky," he shouts, his eyes bright. You smile even as you shake your head. The mistletoe is old and dry, but his joy is real. Your mother decides that you must mark the winter feast. It's tradition, she says, and traditions matter, especially now. The feast isn't much. A thin, stringy rabbit your father caught in a snare, a bit of stale bread softened in a thin broth, and the last few precious apples, wrinkled but still sweet. But it feels like a banquet. Your father even smiles as he raises his cup of weak ale, his voice rough but steady. "To another winter survived," he says. It's a simple toast, but you cling to it. Survival isn't guaranteed here. Every winter is a battle, and every day is a victory. In the village, the church bell rings, its dull, heavy sound carrying over the snow. The priest calls the villagers together for a special mass, a prayer for warmth and light. You and your family join the shuffling, bundled crowd, your breath misting in the cold air. Inside the church, it's only a little warmer, but the flickering candles cast a golden light, pushing back the shadows. The priest speaks of hope, of faith, of the promise that spring will return. You watch the light dancing on the stone walls, and for a moment, you almost believe it. Afterward, there's a quiet cheer, a simple bonfire in the village square. People gather close, stamping their feet, laughing, their faces lit by the crackling flames. Someone produces an old, battered lute, and a clumsy, cheerful song breaks out. It's a fragile joy, but it's real. You cling to it, letting the warmth sink into your bones. For a little while, the darkness seems far away. Back at the cottage, your mother has her own way of fighting the darkness. She teaches you to weave, simple, steady work that keeps your hands busy and your mind calm. The loom is a crude thing, just a wooden frame and a mess of tangled threads, but you learn to move your hands in the right pattern. Over, under. The soft, rhythmic sound is soothing, a gentle heartbeat in the stillness. Sometimes your father carves small figures from wood, tiny animals, birds, and strange creatures with curling horns and sharp claws. He tells you they're good luck charms, but you know he's just keeping himself busy, pushing back his own worries. But even with the little comforts, the darkness is always there. Sometimes, when you lie in bed, staring up at the smoke-stained rafters, you feel it pressing against you. A cold, empty feeling that whispers that the world is just snow and shadow, that spring will never come. Historians still argue whether medieval people truly feared winter as a season of despair, or if they simply accepted it as part of life. But for you, it's more than just cold and darkness. It's a test, a long, slow struggle against that empty feeling that tries to creep in, but you have weapons against it. The songs, the stories, the little celebrations, they are like tiny sparks in the darkness, each one pushing it back just a little. You find yourself humming your mother's song as you gather firewood, the soft, steady tune keeping your mind from wandering. And you find other ways to fight it too. You and your brother play simple games, tossing a little wooden ball back and forth, or drawing rough pictures in the ashes by the hearth. Sometimes you make up stories of your own, tales of brave heroes who fight off the winter demons, who light great fires that melt the snow. Your brother loves them, his eyes wide with wonder. Even your father joins in, telling you of the time he saw a great white bear in the forest, its fur shining like silver in the moonlight. You know it's probably just another one of his tall tales, but you don't care. It makes you smile, and that's enough. But you also learn something important, that you're stronger than you thought. Each day you endure, each night you spend huddled by the fire, is proof of that strength. You have faced the darkness, and though it is still there, you are still here too, and you begin to notice little changes. The days are still short, but maybe just a little longer than before. The wind is still cold, but there are moments when the sun breaks through the clouds, a pale golden light that makes the snow sparkle. Your mother points this out to you, a faint smile on her tired face. The world is turning, she says, slowly, but it is. Your father's voice is a little stronger now, his laugh a little louder. Your brother is always bouncing around, full of questions and games, and you too feel a spark of something inside you, a warmth, a light that won't be snuffed out. The darkness is still here, the cold is still sharp, but so are you, and that is enough. Winter's grip is still strong, but there's a quiet, stubborn defiance growing in your village. People are tired of shivering, tired of darkness, tired of the gnawing hunger that never really leaves. And so they push back, in their own small ways. Your father is one of them. Now that his cough has faded, he's back on his feet, wrapped in his thick patch cloak, his old knife hanging at his side. He's taken to checking the traps each morning, his heavy boots crunching through the snow. Most days he returns with little, a scrawny rabbit, maybe a half-frozen bird. But some days there's nothing at all, just empty, snow-filled snares and frostbitten branches. Hunting in winter is a desperate game. Most of the animals have gone to ground, hiding in burrows or hibernating deep in the forest. The deer are thin and skittish, their ribs showing beneath their thick fur. The wolves are the worst, lean, hungry shadows that prowl the edges of the village, bold enough to slink close when the nights are longest. But your father is stubborn. He tells you stories as he sharpens his knife by the fire, tales of his younger days when he was a hunter, stalking the great boars that roamed the forest. His stories are full of danger and daring, wild chases, narrow escapes, the smell of pine and earth and blood. You've heard them 100 times, but you never tire of them. They remind you that he's strong, that he can fight back against the cold. One morning, he lets you come with him. The air is sharp and clear, the snow crunching beneath your feet. You follow in his tracks, your own wooden spear clutched tight in your gloved hands. It's more of a walking stick than a weapon, but it makes you feel brave. The forest is a different world in winter, a silent white maze where every sound seems to echo. Your breath mists in the air, and the trees stand like ancient, frozen giants. Your father moves with quiet confidence, his eyes scanning the ground, watching for tracks, for any sign of life. It isn't long before you see them. Tiny, delicate footprints in the snow, winding between the trees. Your father crouches, brushing the snow aside. "Rabbit," he murmurs, a hint of excitement in his voice. Maybe a family of them. You follow the tracks, your heart pounding. It feels like an adventure, like the stories your father tells. But there's nothing easy about it. Your fingers go numb, even inside your gloves. Your nose stings with cold. A bitter wind rises, stirring the snow into little swirling ghosts. But you press on, because your father does. Finally, you see it. A flicker of movement beneath a twisted, snow-covered bush. Your father raises his hand, and you freeze. He steps forward, so slowly, it seems like he's barely moving. You hold your breath, watching, waiting. And then, with a swift, practiced motion, he throws a rock, and there's a sudden burst of movement. A panicked rabbit leaping from the bush. Your father's knife flashes, and in a moment, it's over. He lifts the rabbit, small but plump, and a grin breaks through his frost-touched beard. "Dinner," he says simply, and you can't help but smile. Back at the cottage, your mother prepares the rabbit carefully, stretching the little meat as far as she can. The smell of it roasting over the fire fills the room, warm and rich. It's a small victory, but it feels huge. Your father looks at you, his eyes bright. "Not bad, eh?" he says. You feel a rush of pride, nodding. But winter isn't done with you. The next morning, a new challenge arrives, a blizzard. You wake to a world of swirling white, the wind howling like a living thing. The snow comes down in thick, endless waves, piling against the door, pressing against the windows. The light is strange, a pale, shifting grey that filters through the storm. Your father fights to keep the snow from blocking the door completely, shoveling with a rough wooden board. But it's a losing battle. The wind drives the snow against the cottage, and it seems like it will never end. Your mother pulls you and your brother close, stoking the fire, her face tense. Outside, the world is a frozen chaos. The wind screams, and the snow piles higher and higher. The roof groans under the weight. The darkness presses in, and even the fire seems small and weak. You can hear the trees bending in the storm, their branches cracking like old bones. But inside, you are a fortress. Your father returns, his beard caked with snow, his hands red and raw, but he smiles. "We're warm," he says. "We're together. That's enough." Your mother nods, stirring the pot over the fire. A thin stew, mostly broth and a few scraps of meat, but it's hot, and that's what matters. You huddle together, listening to the wind, feeling the warmth of the fire on your face. The storm lasts for 2 days, a wild, relentless fury. Sometimes you think you hear wolves howling in the distance, their voices rising and falling with the wind. Sometimes you wonder if the roof will hold, if the walls will keep out the cold. But they do. And on the 3rd morning, the wind finally dies. The village is buried in snow, drifts reaching almost to the roofs of the cottages. It takes hours just to dig the door free, to push out into the pale, blinding light. The world is transformed, a white, silent desert. The trees are bent beneath the snow. The paths are gone. But the sky's clear, a pale, perfect blue, and the sun is bright, its weak rays glittering on the frozen world. Your father laughs, his breath misting in the cold air. "See," he says, "the storm is done, and we're still here." Historians still argue whether medieval peasants saw winter storms as signs of divine wrath or just another hazard of life. For you, it's simpler. It's a monster, a fierce howling beast. But it's a beast you've survived, and that's something worth celebrating. Your mother makes a little cake, barely sweet, just a bit of honey and flour, but you all gather around, sharing the tiny bites, laughing, feeling that strange, wild joy that comes from simply being alive. And as you stand in the bright, frozen sunlight, you realize something. Winter is fierce, but so are you. The cold is strong, but your family's stronger. The storm has passed, and for the first time in a long while, you feel something new, hope. As the days stretch on and the blizzards recede, you begin to notice the subtle shift in the air, like the world is breathing again, slowly, as if it had been holding its breath for months. It's a feeling you can't quite put into words. The light is a little brighter, the snow a little softer, and even the wind seemed gentler, as though the earth itself is preparing for a thaw. You've survived the worst of winter, and now there's a quiet sense of anticipation, a whisper that spring might be closer than you thought. Your father, however, is still cautious. He's spent enough winters to know that nature is never quite as predictable as people hope. He continues to track the weather, scanning the sky for any signs of another storm, and the firewood pile continues to shrink, albeit more slowly now. Even though the worst seems to have passed, every storm that rolls in makes you all a little more wary. The village, too, remains in its winter rhythm. People move slower now, as if the cold has started to settle into their bones, but there's a new energy bubbling under the surface, a quiet hope that builds like the first stirrings of spring. You hear the adults talk about it in the evenings, plans for the planting season, thoughts of what the year might bring once the earth wakes up again. Your mother has already started sorting through last year's seeds, her hands deft as they move through the little bundles. You watch her closely, curious about how she knows which seeds are the best, the ones that will grow strong. She tells you it's a matter of experience, of paying attention to the way the plants have done in previous seasons. The soil talks to you, she says with a smile, her voice light despite the weariness in her eyes. You just have to listen. Despite the constant cold, there are moments of warmth now, small moments of light in the dark winter. One day, you find your mother sitting by the fire, her needle moving in swift, practiced motions as she mends a torn cloak. You sit beside her, watching the way the cloth slowly comes back together. There's something comforting in the rhythm of it, the way her hands move with such care, as if every stitch holds the promise of something better. Your father, too, has begun to prepare for the spring. He spends hours poring over his tools, sharpening axes and hoes, checking the blades for any damage from the long months of use. You can see the wear on his hands, the calluses that have formed from the years of hard work. But despite it all, there's a quiet pride in his actions, a sense that this is what he's meant to do: provide, protect, build. It's easy to forget, in the winter's depths, that there will be a future, that the days will lengthen, the cold will recede, and the earth will rise up again. But now, as the seasons begin their slow shift, you start to believe it again. You begin to see the first faint hints of green at the edges of the fields, and even the birds seem to sing a little louder, as though they, too, are waking up from the long frozen silence. One afternoon, as you stand outside, feeling the weak but warm sun on your face, you notice the snow beginning to melt. It's a slow process, the ice pulling back from the ground, revealing patches of dirt, rough and dark beneath the thawing layer. You walk carefully toward the edge of the forest, where the snow is thinner, and you notice the faintest signs of life. Tiny buds beginning to push up from the frozen earth, a promise of spring. Your heart lifts as you crouch down, running your fingers through the softening snow, feeling the earth beneath it. It's a small thing, but it's enough. The thaw has begun. You return to the cottage with this new hope, and as you enter, your father is there, his back to you as he splits firewood for the coming nights. You watch him for a moment before calling out, "The earth is waking up." Your father turns, a slow grin spreading across his face. "Aye," he says, wiping the sweat from his brow, "and so are we." The warmth of his words sinks deep into your chest, and for the first time in months, you let yourself feel it. That sense of something more. You've endured the long winter, survived its cold and darkness, and now, at last, you see the first glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. The village, too, has started to stir. You see neighbours beginning to step outside more often, their faces tilted toward the sun, their steps lighter, as though they're remembering that the world is still turning. There's talk of the first planting day, of what crops they'll sow and which ones they might abandon. The frost still bites the air in the mornings, but it doesn't last long now. Your mother, with her quiet determination, begins to prepare for the planting. You see her watching the sky with a practiced eye, gauging the weather and timing the planting just right. There's something magical in the way she works. Each movement, each decision, feels as though it's a part of an ancient rhythm, something that's been passed down through generations. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants viewed spring as a divine gift or simply as a necessary season for survival. But for you, it doesn't matter. Spring is the answer. It's the hope that grows with each passing day, the promise that everything, no matter how harsh, how cold, will eventually give way to something better. The ground beneath your feet, though still frozen and hard, carries the whisper of life. You're ready for it. The village is ready for it. Winter's dark grip is loosening, and the first signs of renewal are here. It's been a long, hard journey, but the thaw is beginning, and with it, the promise of another year. The days grow steadily longer, and the earth beneath you begins to soften, releasing its hold on winter. The thaw has arrived in earnest. Each morning when you step outside, the ground feels a little warmer, and the air smells faintly of damp soil, a promise of new life. The snow is retreating, leaving behind patches of brown grass and the occasional stubborn drift, but there's no denying the change. The world is waking up, and so are you. Your mother's garden is her pride and joy, and now, in these early days of spring, it becomes the focus of her attention. She walks the rows, eyes scanning the soil, checking for frost, feeling for the right moment to plant the seeds. You watch her carefully, absorbing her every movement, her every gesture. This, you know, is the work that defines the future, the work that will sustain you, your family, and your village through the coming months. But there's more to it than just planting. You learn that the timing is crucial. Too early, and the frost might kill the young shoots. Too late, and the growing season could be cut short. Your mother knows this instinctively, and her steady hands show you how to test the soil with your fingers, how to read the subtle cues that the land gives. She teaches you how to handle the seeds with reverence, how to press them into the earth, not too deep but just enough, with a quiet prayer for their survival. There's a particular rhythm to this work, a deep meditative focus that helps you forget, at least for a while, the cold that's past. You find yourself becoming part of the earth in a way, your fingers stained with soil, your palms roughened from the labour. Every seed you plant is a small promise, a vow that you'll weather whatever storms come next. But not everything is as simple as sowing seeds and waiting for the harvest. There's still work to be done, plenty of it. The forest beckons with its bounty, and your father is already preparing the tools for the next phase of survival. The hunt is never over, not even in spring. The animals that survive the winter are lean, hungry, and skittish, but they still offer sustenance. There's always work to do, whether it's tending the animals or felling trees for firewood. You and your father head to the woods one morning, your breath clouding in the crisp air. The trees stand tall around you, their branches bare but strong. There's something calming about the forest in spring. There's a stillness to it, a quiet that only the wind can break. Your father moves ahead, eyes sharp as always, and you follow in his footsteps, feeling a connection to the land around you, to the very heartbeat of the world. As you move deeper into the woods, you spot fresh tracks in the snow. Deer. Your father crouches, examining the prints. "These are from last night," he mutters. "They're nearby. Stay sharp." The hunt is always more than just survival. It's a dance, a slow, deliberate chase through the woods. You follow your father, moving silently, blending into the landscape as if you're one with the earth. There's a thrill in the pursuit, a sense of purpose that stirs something deep within you. Finally, after hours of careful movement, you spot them. A small group of deer grazing in a clearing, unaware of your presence. Your heart races. Your father holds up a hand, signaling you to stay low. Slowly, you draw your makeshift bow, an old but reliable tool your father made for you when you were younger. It's quiet now, too quiet. The only sounds are the distant call of birds and the rustling of leaves. You draw the string back, aiming carefully, your fingers steady. Your father's presence beside you is a silent reassurance. But this moment, this shot, is yours alone. You release the arrow and it flies true, finding its mark. The deer falls, you let out a breath, the tension in your body releasing in one smooth exhale. Your father pats you on the back, a rare sign of approval, and together you approach the animal. It's a small victory, but it's enough to keep your family fed for another week or so, and that's what matters. The hunt doesn't end there. There's always something to gather, something to bring back. You skin the deer, cut the meat, and carry it back to the village, your muscles aching with the effort. You've seen your father do it countless times, but now you realize how much goes into every successful hunt. The patience, the stealth, the skill required to make it all work. And then there's the unexpected, the sound of the village bell ringing in the distance, calling everyone to the central square. The call is urgent, and there's a sense of unease that hangs in the air as you and your father exchange a look. You hurry back, the weight of the deer carcass pressing heavily in your arms. When you arrive at the square, you find the villagers gathered around in a tight circle, their faces grim. Something is wrong. The tension is palpable, and it's not just from the day's work. A messenger has arrived, breathless and panicked, with news from the neighbouring town. There's been a raid, raiders from the east, a band of marauders that have been wreaking havoc on smaller villages, pillaging what they can. Your heart sinks and you exchange a look with your father. This is a reminder that winter may have passed, but danger is always just around the corner. The village leaders meet in urgent whispers, making plans, organising defences. It's a reminder that survival isn't just about the cold, it's about the constant threat of forces beyond your control. But there's no time for fear now. The work must continue, and as always, your family must do what it takes to survive. You leave the square, the weight of the news heavy on your mind, but you keep moving forward. The hunt isn't over, and neither is your fight for survival. Historians still argue whether the medieval peasants feared not just the elements, but the chaos of a lawless world that could descend upon them at any moment. But for you, this moment is a reminder that survival is about more than just enduring the cold. It's about fighting for your life, no matter what the world throws at you. As you make your way back to the safety of your home, the first rays of the afternoon sun warm your skin. There's a quiet peace in the air, one that makes you believe, if only for a moment, that everything might be okay. Spring is now in full bloom, and the air smells of wildflowers, freshly turned soil, and the faintest trace of pine. The ground is soft beneath your boots, and the village feels different somehow, lighter. There's a sense of anticipation, as though everything is holding its breath, waiting for the harvest to come, for the earth to give back what it's taken. The world outside your cottage door is alive in ways that winter never allowed. With every blade of grass, every petal, every fluttering bird, a reminder that life is returning to its fullest form. You've taken on more responsibility in the last few weeks. It's not just about planting and hunting anymore. You're learning to maintain the delicate balance between the two. The woods are teeming with life now, deer grazing on the fresh shoots, rabbits darting through the underbrush, and the occasional fox slinking in the shadows. The river, once frozen solid, now runs swift and cold, swollen from the melting snow, its icy waters a source of life for everything around it. But there's also a weight to it all. As the weather improves, so do the challenges of living in a place where survival is never guaranteed. Every day is a test, a balance between working the land, ensuring food and supplies, and staying safe from the ever-present dangers that still lurk in the shadows. The memory of the raid still lingers, a warning that things can change in an instant. Your father has been working relentlessly to fortify the village. He's involved in the construction of a new fence, one that will hopefully offer more protection from the raiders. You've seen him work with the other men, their faces grim but determined, hauling logs and hammering stakes into the ground. There's a quiet intensity to the work now, a sense that they are preparing for something they hope never comes but know may be inevitable. Meanwhile, your mother spends her days tending to the garden, watching the seedlings she planted, with such hope beginning to sprout. There's something almost magical about it, the way the tiny green shoots rise up from the earth, as though they're reclaiming what's theirs after months of cold. You can see the pride in your mother's eyes as she watches the first signs of life in her garden. But there's also a sense of urgency. The plants need to grow, and they need to grow quickly. The village has learned over the years that a late frost or unexpected drought can ruin everything in an instant. You help where you can, gathering firewood, watching the chickens, keeping an eye on the younger children. You're no longer the child who needs constant supervision. You've grown, and with that growth comes the recognition that survival is a shared responsibility. You're part of something bigger now, part of the community, part of the team. The work never ends, but you can feel the satisfaction in your bones when the day's tasks are complete, when the fire crackles in the hearth, and the scent of fresh bread fills the air. It's in the small moments, too, that you find comfort. You've started to share meals with the other families in the village, and the once distant sense of community is starting to feel real. People linger after dinner, talking quietly, laughing, and making plans. There's a subtle sense of camaraderie that wasn't there before, something that seems to have emerged from the long months of struggle. The shared hardship has forged a bond between you and your neighbours that no winter could have broken. And yet, despite all of this, there's always a reminder of how fragile it all is. You hear whispers around the village, talk of the raid, of how some of the neighbouring villages have been hit hard. You know it's a constant threat, one that can return at any time. It's a reminder that while the earth may give, it can also take away. There's no such thing as true security here, only the quiet hope that survival is enough. One afternoon, as you and your father head into the woods again, the sky's clear and the birds are singing. You're carrying a fresh load of firewood, your muscles aching from the effort when you hear it, the distant sound of drums. At first you think it's just the wind, but then you hear it again, clearer this time, a rhythmic beating that makes your heart skip. Your father stops in his tracks, listening intently. "Raiders," he mutters, his voice low but certain. "They're close." Your heart races. You don't have time to question, to wonder if this is a false alarm. Your father motions for you to stay low, his eyes scanning the trees. You both move swiftly, your steps quiet as you duck behind a cluster of bushes, staying out of sight. You've been trained for moments like this, but it doesn't make the fear go away. The drums continue, growing louder, and you know they're getting closer. Your father's face is set in grim determination. "Stay here," he whispers, pulling you close. "I'll go check. Stay hidden. Don't make a sound." You nod, your heart pounding in your chest as you crouch low to the ground. Blending into the forest, you watch as your father slips away, moving with the ease of someone who spent his life in these woods. You don't know what will happen next. Don't know if the drums you hear are the prelude to a fight or simply an empty threat. All you can do is wait. Hours pass, or maybe it's just minutes. You can't tell. Time seems to slow in the forest, each moment stretched thin. The sound of drums fades and then comes back, farther this time, and eventually it's gone. Your father returns, his face tense but unscathed. He motions for you to follow him, and you both head back to the village, the air heavy with silence. As you return, you hear the familiar sound of the bell tolling again, calling everyone to the square. There's an unsettling sense of urgency now, and when you reach the centre of the village, you find the leaders meeting in hushed tones. You don't know the details yet, but you know one thing for sure. The world is never as safe as you wish it could be. Even now, as the earth begins to warm and the promise of spring lies just ahead, there's still danger. Always danger. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants ever truly found safety, or whether they simply learned to survive despite it. But for you, there's no real debate. Survival is a constant balancing act between the land, the seasons, and the threats that linger at the edge of the known world. The days blur together as the warmth of spring settles into the village. The earth, once cold and unyielding, now pulses with the quiet hum of life. There's a feeling in the air, something almost electric, as if the very soil beneath your feet is stirring, preparing to give birth to something new. The seeds your mother planted have begun to sprout, and with each new green shoot, hope rises in your chest. The worst of the winter has passed, and now it's a time of rebirth. But with that rebirth comes the ever-present tension. Your father's face, once lined with the strain of winter, is now softer, the tension in his posture easing as the days grow longer. But even now, in the warmth of spring, you can see that the weight of the past few months still rests heavily on him. The raid, though it never came to pass, has left its mark. The village is still wary, the threat of marauders lurking at the edge of everyone's thoughts. You've seen your father working tirelessly on the fence, strengthening it, reinforcing weak spots, ensuring that the village is as secure as it can be. He's not alone in this. The other men in the village, each one with a story of their own, have joined in. Together, they're creating a barrier, a shield between the fragile peace of the village and the dangers beyond. But there's something more to it. There's a palpable sense of unity that has emerged in the wake of the threat. The villagers, once isolated in their small plots of land, have come together in a way they never had before. The sense of community, though always present, is now stronger, forged in the heat of shared fear and survival. It's in the way they gather in the square, talking in quiet voices, sharing news and making plans. It's in the way they work together in the fields, helping each other plant, harvest and defend. It's the knowledge that no one can survive alone in a world that can turn on you at a moment's notice. As the days stretch on, you find yourself more involved in these communal efforts. You help your father with the fortifications. Though your role is small, you gather wood, hammer in nails, and lend a hand wherever you can. There's a new sense of purpose in these tasks, and for the first time in your life, you truly understand the value of community. It's not just about surviving anymore. It's about thriving together, about ensuring that everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, has what they need to make it through another season. Even the women of the village who once focused solely on domestic duties have become more involved in the defence efforts. You've seen them sharpening tools, carrying heavy sacks of grain, and helping to strengthen the village walls. They too understand the fragility of life in this place. There's no room for weakness, not when everything, your family, your home, your future, depends on the strength of the community. The village, once quiet and isolated, now hums with activity. The women, children, and elderly help tend the gardens and the livestock. The men work the fields and the woods, ensuring that there will be enough food for the coming months. And all of them, every single one of them, plays a role in fortifying the walls, creating the invisible line between safety and chaos. But the sense of unity, though powerful, is fragile. The threat of outside forces still looms large, and the raid is never far from anyone's mind. The village bell rings often now, a signal that something is amiss or that there's news to be shared. Every time you hear it toll, your heart races, and you find yourself instinctively glancing toward the horizon, searching for any sign of danger. And yet, despite the fear that sometimes creeps into your thoughts, there's a quiet comfort in the routine of it all. The days pass, each one blending into the next, and there's a rhythm to life now, one that feels both ancient and new. The planting is done. The work in the fields continues, and slowly the village settles into the cycle of survival. But there's always the underlying knowledge that the seasons may turn again, that danger may come once more. You're becoming more and more like your father, learning not just the skills of the hunt and the land, but also how to live with the constant awareness that survival is never guaranteed. You've started to wake earlier each day, your eyes scanning the horizon before you even step outside. There's a quiet vigilance that has become second nature, an understanding that the world is always shifting, always changing. One moment the land is fertile and full of promise, and the next it could be stripped away in an instant. It's not just the land that's unpredictable, though. The people around you have their own stories, their own struggles, their own fears. You've seen the weariness in their eyes, the silent acknowledgement that things could change in an instant. The raids could come, the weather could turn, the crops could fail, the animals could die. Any of these things could bring an end to everything you've worked for. And yet, there's also something deeply resilient about the people in your village. They've survived winters colder than this one, faced hardships darker than any you can imagine, and yet they persist. There's a quiet strength in their bones, a refusal to let the world take everything from them. It's this strength that gives you hope, that makes you believe, if only for a moment, that perhaps survival isn't about avoiding danger, but about weathering it with grace. You've come to understand that survival isn't just about surviving the seasons, the raids, or the hunger. It's about finding meaning in the work, in the relationships, and in the land itself. The struggle to live, to make it through another day, is what gives life its depth. It's what makes the sunrise worth waking up for and the harvest worth celebrating. Historians still argue whether medieval peasants truly understood the full weight of the forces they fought against. But for you, there's no doubt. You've learned through the years that survival isn't just about the physical struggle. It's also about the mental and emotional endurance required to face each new challenge head on. It's about finding a way to keep going, even when everything seems stacked against you. As you look out across the village, at the people you've come to know and care for, you realise that it's not just the land that sustains you, it's the community, it's the shared effort, the willingness to work together, to fight together, and to stand together in the face of whatever comes. This, you think, is how you survive. The days grow longer, the sun warming your back as you work the fields, and the ever-present tension seems to ease, if only slightly. It's a rhythm now, the cycle of planting, tending, and harvesting, a pattern that stretches out in front of you, like the winding path of the river, always flowing, always moving forward. Yet despite the sense of normalcy, the edge of unease never quite fades. There's an awareness now, a quiet understanding that the world is fragile, and anything can change in an instant. You've become more adept at balancing your daily tasks, your hands calloused from the work, your muscles strong and used to the weight of the tools you carry. You've learned to read the land, where the soil is richest, where the animals are most likely to be found, how to anticipate the weather from the subtle shifts in the wind. These skills have become second nature, as vital as the air you breathe. You've also learned how to listen, really listen, to the people around you. The conversations in the village are often about the land, about the animals, about the weather, but they also drift to something deeper, the unspoken knowledge that the world outside could turn hostile again at any moment. There are still moments when you find yourself looking over your shoulder, eyes scanning the horizon for any signs of danger, but you're learning to push those fears aside. The work, the community, the quiet rhythm of daily life, it all becomes a comfort in its own way, a shield against the constant undercurrent of uncertainty. But just as you've begun to think the worst is behind you, the first signs of trouble emerge again. It's not in the form of raiders, not yet, but in the form of something much more subtle, the fields themselves. The crops you've worked so hard to plant begin to wither. The leaves turn yellow, the soil cracks, and the once promising harvest starts to look bleak. Your mother is the first to notice, her face drawn tight with concern as she inspects the plants, her fingers brushing over the shriveled leaves, the brittle stems. She doesn't need to say anything. You know what it means. There won't be enough food to last through the winter unless something changes. You try not to panic, but the weight of the situation presses down on you. There's a sense of urgency now, a pressure you hadn't felt in months. The village, though united, is still vulnerable. Without a proper harvest, there will be nothing to store for the cold months ahead. And without that food, the village won't survive. The community bands together again, but this time the stakes feel higher. The men work the fields, their backs bent low, pulling weeds, turning the soil, trying desperately to revive the crops. The women help in the kitchens, trying to stretch the little food they have, making every meal count. The children, too young to work the fields, have become the messengers, running between families, carrying news, relaying messages. It's a collective effort, each person playing their part, doing whatever they can to make sure the village survives. Your father is no longer just fortifying the village, he's now working with the elders, seeking out remedies for the failing crops. There's talk of strange herbs, old folk remedies, and practices passed down through generations. Some of it seems a bit superstitious, burning certain plants to ward off bad luck, leaving offerings to the earth, performing rituals to appease the spirits of the land. But no one is willing to dismiss any possibility. Desperation has a way of making people try anything, no matter how strange or unproven. You're sent to gather herbs from the woods, a task you've done countless times before, but this time there's an urgency to it. The leaves seem brighter, the air tinged with an odd electric hum, as though the land itself is aware of the stakes. You move quickly through the trees, gathering what you need, your mind racing with thoughts of what might happen if the crops fail completely. You try not to think about it, focusing on the task at hand, but it's hard not to let the weight of your responsibility bear down on you. When you return to the village, the news is grim. The crops are still failing, and no one seems to know why. There's talk of drought, of blight, of bad luck, but nothing concrete. The village is on the brink of desperation, and despite everyone's best efforts, there's still no guarantee that you'll make it through the coming winter. But in these moments of uncertainty, there's a strength that emerges from the community, a quiet resilience that you hadn't noticed before. Even in the face of looming hunger, the villagers continue to work together, to help each other, to share what little they have. There's no panic, no fighting, no finger pointing. It's just a collective understanding that survival is a team effort. And then in the midst of it all, something strange happens. One morning, you wake to find that the crops seem to have revived. The once dying plants are now green and full of life, the leaves strong and vibrant. It's as though the earth itself has decided to give you a second chance. The elders, too, notice the change, and there's a murmur of disbelief among them. Had the old remedies worked? Had the spirits finally answered the village's plea? No one knows for sure, but the results are undeniable. The village breathes a collective sigh of relief, the tension lifting just enough to make room for cautious optimism. The harvest may yet be saved, and with it, the promise of another winter's survival. But the lessons of the past still hang heavy in the air. You know that nothing is certain. The world can shift beneath your feet at any moment, and you must always be prepared for whatever comes next. Historians still argue whether the medieval peasants' deep connection to the land was a source of strength or simply a reflection of their dependence on it. For you, it's a little of both. You've seen firsthand how the land can provide, how it can sustain life when everything else seems to be falling apart. But you've also seen how fragile that relationship is, how quickly everything can turn against you. Survival, it seems, is never guaranteed, no matter how hard you work or how much you prepare. As the days go by and the crops continue to recover, you find yourself thinking more about the future. You've learned that survival isn't just about the land, it's about the people around you, the bonds you've forged with your family and neighbours. It's about sharing the load, about being ready to face whatever challenges come next, and about finding hope even in the darkest of times. You've learned that survival isn't just a matter of holding on. It's about learning to adapt, to find strength in unity, and to never give up, no matter what the world throws at you. The harvest is finally in, and though it's not the bumper crop you'd hoped for, it's enough to see the village through the coming months. There's a quiet satisfaction in this achievement, the collective pride of knowing that, despite the setbacks, the work has paid off. The food stores are full again, the cellar stocked with preserves, dried meats and root vegetables. There's an air of contentment that seems to settle over the village, like a soft blanket warming everyone from the inside out. The fields, though not as bountiful as they were in years past, are still alive with the promise of another cycle, another chance to rebuild, to recover, to survive. And yet, even as you take in the fruits of your labour, there's a lingering awareness in the back of your mind, the knowledge that the coming winter could still bring hardships, still present challenges you cannot foresee. The cold, the hunger, the isolation, they're all inevitable parts of life in this world. But there's a quiet acceptance now, a realization that you, your family, and your village have learned something important over the past few months. You've learned that survival is not a singular thing. It's a community effort, a constant, ever-evolving dance between the land, the people, and the unpredictable forces of nature. You've learned that every success, no matter how small, is the result of countless hours of hard work, sacrifice, and cooperation. And most importantly, You've learned that hope is not found in the certainty of a good harvest, but in the willingness to persevere, to keep pushing forward even when the outcome is uncertain. The winter will come, of course, it always does, but now, as the first frost begins to creep across the fields, you feel ready for it. The lessons you've learned, the strength you found in the village, and the resilience that runs through your bones have prepared you for what lies ahead. You know that the hardships won't disappear. They'll always be there, lurking just beyond the horizon. But you also know that no matter what happens, you will face them together, just as you've always done. As the days shorten and the cold sets in, the village settles into its winter routine. The work slows, the nights grow longer, and there's a sense of calm that pervades the air. The fires crackle in the hearths, the scent of roasting meat and baking bread fills the homes, and the warmth of the community provides a sense of security against the chill that threatens outside. You've come to appreciate these quiet moments, the stillness of the night, the closeness of your family, the simplicity of just being together, safe for now. And yet, even in these moments of peace, there's still that quiet vigilance, that awareness that things can change at any moment. You've seen it before. The raids, the harsh winters, the slow creep of hunger. But this time, something is different. This time, you're not just surviving, you're living. You're no longer simply going through the motions, hoping to make it to the next season. You've learned how to live in the moment, how to appreciate the small joys that come with each day. Whether it's the warmth of a fire on a cold evening, or the shared laughter of a family gathered around the table. Historians still argue whether the medieval peasant's existence was one of constant suffering, or if it was, at times, marked by moments of quiet joy. It's hard to say. But for you, the truth lies somewhere in between. Yes, the struggles were real. Yes, there were countless hardships that threatened to break you, to tear the fabric of your life apart. But there were also moments of beauty, moments of connection, and moments of triumph. These are the moments that define you now. These are the moments that make the struggle worthwhile. As the snow begins to fall, blanketing the village in a soft, quiet silence, you reflect on the journey that brought you here. You think of the early mornings spent chopping wood, the long hours spent in the fields, the quiet nights spent in the warmth of your home. You think of the people who stood by you, who worked alongside you, who fought with you to ensure that the village survived. You think of your family, the ones who taught you how to endure, how to live, how to love. And as the winter settles in, you feel a deep sense of peace. The world outside may be harsh and uncertain, but in here, in this moment, there is warmth, there is safety, there is life, and that, you realise, is enough. The challenges may come again, as they always do, but for now, you've found a place of respite. A place where, despite the cold and the hardship, you can rest, you can breathe, you can remember what it means to be alive. And in the end, that's what makes it all worth it. The simple, beautiful act of surviving, of enduring, and of living.